This one's gonna be confusing at first. The first time I watched Hall of Egress, it confused the F out of me. Then, I forgot about it for years. So, one day, I'm scrolling Reddit and discovered that I actually wasn't alone in all of my confusion. A lot of AT fans loved the Hall of Egress, and a lot of them are also pretty confused by it. So, what does it mean? I conducted a very unscientific poll in the comments section of the AT subreddit and concluded that the Hall of Egress is everybody's favorite episode. People love it for different things. The episode is so deep and complex that it can be interpreted in a dozen different ways. The one and only AT GOAT Uncivilized Elk made an excellent analysis 8 years ago. He interpreted the Hall of Egress as a metaphor for growth. You don't grow up when you try to grow. You just fail harder. You only start growing when you stop trying. It's an excellent interpretation, but I see it a little differently. Just to be clear, my interpretation is not better, and hopefully not worse. It's just different. The beauty of the Hall of Egress is that the episode has multiple multi-layered metaphors that can have very many simultaneously valid meanings. But before we start with the interpretation of the episode, let's do a quick recap of the events that actually happened in it first. So, Finn goes to explore a new cave and gets stuck. He tries to get out, but he fails every single time.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it.
This is like an ancient sacred temple.
Finn starts off wisecracking and assumes it's just another adventure, but it's not. It's about to get very dark.
You don't put traps in the foyer. The foyer is a safe space.
With the front door sealed by a giant rock, Finn starts looking for a back door, but he just falls into a deeper part of the cave. Further exploration leads him to what he believes is the way out.
Hall of Egress. 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 What's egress mean?
Exit.
Egress means exit!
It does mean that, but Finn is not going to exit through that door. He's gonna be stuck in that cave for a very long time, but he tries anyway. Finn pushes the door, pulls at it, and even tries to smash it with pieces of snowman statue. The snowman just unshatters and reassembles itself. This is where Finn makes his first discovery.
Hey, I just smashed you!
No, not that. This.
Ah, magic door. Okay. Right, but if I...
Finn realizes that he can't open the magic door no matter how hard he tries. But if he just closes his eyes, he can walk right through it. Or can he?
That ought to done it. And...
It turns out he can't. Finn can walk through the magic door if his eyes are closed, but as soon as he opens his eyes, he finds himself right back where he started. Finn tries a few more times. He even follows a thread that he had left behind to mark his path so Jake could track him.
Oh, what have we here? An errant thread! It must lead back out. Breadcrumb style. Oof!
The thread doesn't lead out. When Finn opens his eyes, he finds himself right where he started. He creates a map. Following that map leads him right back to where he started. He finds a series of exit signs.
E, G, egress. It spells egress. This way.
Following the signs lead him to a trap. He opens his eyes and finds himself right where he started. No matter what method Finn uses to try and leave the cave, he always fails and finds himself stuck at the starting point.
Okay, so every map I make is wrong. All the exit signs led to traps. Plus the braille, the hieroglyphics, and the tape recorder message too.
So Finn decides to ditch the clever plan and just brute force the whole thing.
It's almost like the maze is trying to tell me something. Something confusing. Whatever.
Finn just runs and runs until he runs out of breath, and it works. Kinda. After a couple of random turns, he hears Jake calling his name. He recharges and runs. Finn forces his way through the rocks covering the cave and sees Jake.
Finn? Where are you, buddy?
Jake!
Oops! He opens his eyes and is instantly teleported back to the starting point.
That's a little disappointing.
Finn figures he's learned the lesson here. Never open his eyes again. He takes another random turn and climbs out of the magic cave. He reunites with Jake, but keeps his eyes tightly closed. He tells Jake about the cave, but Jake can't see it, so Finn draws him a map.
Well, I followed your map, but there's just a bunch of grass here.
What? Let me see!
He opens his eyes and, again, he finds himself right back in the cave.
Dang it.
Finn forces his way out again, and after going to sleep, he wakes up and opens them to prove BMO that he's not scared. And he finds himself right back in the cave. So, when Finn makes it out of the cave for the third time, he never ever opens his eyes again. But Jake opens them for him.
So, I got you a little something, a little present.
Wow, thanks, man.
You're really gonna thank me. Gotcha!
No!
Finn finds himself back in the cave.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
Finn forces his way back home, Jake forces his eyes wide open, and back to the cave he goes. This happens over and over and over again.
Yeah, you've done it like 30 times now. Yeah! 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 Yeah!
This is obviously not fun for Finn. He just wants to leave the darn cave, but every time he's forced to go back because Jake forces his eyes open. I have to commend Finn for his perseverance. If somebody frustrated me like that, I don't think I would, well, let's just say my reaction is not safe for YouTube. But the Hall of Egress doesn't focus on perseverance. It teaches it, but it's not the main course. As for Jake, he looks like a jerk over here, but his reasoning is flawless.
Shoot, man. If I want to do it that bad, it must be kind of right?
Now, while I hate Jake for what he's doing to Finn, and I would definitely twist his neck like a wet towel if he kept doing that to me, I am forced to agree with him. Finn's quality of life isn't gonna be that great if he's going through life with his eyes tightly closed because he's too terrified to open them. Jake also can't see the cave and can't remember all the times that Finn gets teleported back to the cave. From Jake's perspective, Finn is just having a hallucination.
Look at it from where I'm sitting. All this funky pizzazz that only you can see. That's like the literal definition of a hallucination.
Jake is forcing Finn to face his problems and find a real solution. Closing his eyes is a suboptimal solution. Finn isn't solving the problem. He's just ignoring it and hoping it goes away by itself. The real solution would involve Finn finding a way to leave the magic cave with his eyes wide open. And if he doesn't do that, he's always going to be stuck in the cave. But how does he get out?
No more threads to follow. No more egress.
Finn finally figures it out. He can only get out of the cave if he doesn't try to get out at all. After trying so hard for so long and failing every single time, Finn finally succeeds in making it out of the cave with his eyes wide open by not trying at all.
That must have been some cave.
No comment!
Alright, so now that we know what actually happens, we have the pesky little problem of what it all means. Everybody's tried to demystify the meanings of Finn's journey in the Hall of Egress, so I guess it's my turn. The lazy option is just to dismiss the episode as a Groundhog Day ripoff, and we're not gonna do that. Of all the interpretations, that would probably be the most incorrect. Groundhog Day didn't invent the time loop. Stories with a repetitive time loop can be traced all the way back to 1915. Groundhog Day just turned out to be like way more famous than the other stories that came before, and now nobody can do a time loop story without getting accused of copying Groundhog Day. I love Groundhog Day, by the way, but its message was mostly just, don't be a jerk. The Hall of Egress is a little deeper than that. Adventure Time puts a very unique twist on the time-tested time loop. But you didn't come here for a history lesson now, did you? You came to watch a grown man dissect a kid's cartoon. Totally normal stuff. While the metaphors in the Hall of Egress can be unpacked in dozens of different ways, I believe that Finn's journey is a metaphor for life as a whole. On the surface, the lesson seems to be that if you want to succeed, you should stop trying so hard. But when you scratch a little deeper, you see that the actual message is the exact opposite of that. So Finn didn't fail to get out of the cave because he was trying too hard. He failed to get out of the cave because he was trying in all the wrong ways. Finn came to explore the cave, but the minute he got there, he decides to just leave? He didn't try to have an adventure, he didn't try to explore the cave, and he didn't even try to understand it. He just tried to leave. In, out. But the magic cave prevented him from leaving. It kept bringing him back over and over again until he gave up trying to leave and chose to stay. After that, he thoroughly explored the cave and its surroundings. Once he'd done that, the magic cave allowed him to leave. Initially, we had a Finn who was just ticking boxes. Enter cave, walk out of cave, claim victory, the end. The magic cave refused to allow this though. It demanded more of him. The cave didn't reward Finn with an exit because he stopped trying. It rewarded him with an exit because he stopped trying to leave and actually explored the cave. This is a very important distinction. Finn came to explore the cave, and the magic cave kept bringing him back until he had actually done that. I believe that's the message here. Do the thing, explore the cave. Don't just get in and get out. Walk around, learn and understand. Then you're free to leave. A lot of us today are like Finn. Take the example of a guy who flies to France, takes a selfie in front of the Eiffel Tower, flies back home, and calls himself well-traveled. That guy didn't actually do anything. He never bothered to learn the language, understand the culture, or even do anything French. He just went through the motions of traveling to France without actually being there because his mind was somewhere else. Or you can go ahead and look at this video. In the first half, people are celebrating the new year in Times Square in 2000. In the second half, people are also celebrating the new year in the same place 24 years later. The first group, the 2000 people, are actually enjoying the experience, but the 2024 people are not enjoying anything. They're not truly present. They're just going through the motions of attending a party without actually partying. Instead of focusing on the experience, they're busy taking pictures while worrying about the likes those pictures are going to get. They're physically there, but their minds are somewhere else entirely. By not being fully present, by focusing on party highlights like pictures instead of the party itself, they suck all the joy out of the experience for themselves and everybody else. We're all just like Finn. He sees an upside-down snowman and uses it to smash the door, instead of bothering to understand why it's upside down. He tries to get in and out of the cave as fast as possible instead of doing what he actually came to do: explore the darn cave. By focusing on the destination instead of the journey, Finn makes the whole thing so much harder for himself. And, so do we. We have become a society of people who go through the motions of doing something without actually doing the thing. I thought I knew how to cook, but I recently discovered I don't actually know how to cook. I just know how to follow recipes. It took a friend that actually knows how to cook to show me this. The difference between the kind of meals he can make and the kind of meals that I make, it's embarrassing. The reason is because I never learned to enjoy the process. Every time I cook, I just want to finish as fast as possible. But by focusing on cooking quickly instead of cooking well, I make the entire process miserable for myself, and the meals I make are mediocre at best. One of the biggest problems of modernity is that it has conditioned all of us to be like this. Everything we do makes us miserable and ends up being substandard because we hyper-focus on results and never bother to enjoy the process. As the Hall of Egress shows, this is the wrong attitude, but we all have it. It's like going to a road trip and instead of packing snacks and creating a banger playlist for the road, we just stare straight ahead and worry about when we'll arrive. Of course, that trip is gonna be miserable. You're gonna feel every minute of it. But when you focus on having fun during the road trip, you're actually gonna get there before you even know it. Finn was like that. He went to explore the cave, but once he got there, he just focused on leaving. His mind wasn't in the cave. It was somewhere else. This brings us to the big question. Who is to blame? Is it capitalism? Society? My dad? Alright, I don't actually think there's one entity that deserves all the blame. Maybe it's just human nature to enjoy certain things and hate other things. Or maybe somebody programmed us to be this way when we were young and it stuck. Personally, I'd like to blame the education system. When you're a child, everything is fun. I once spent a whole morning just watching a beetle roll some cow dung. I used to enjoy watching ants carry breadcrumbs twice their size. Nowadays, I just murder them with bug spray. And I think the difference is school. When you're a kid, you learn things out of curiosity, and it's fun because you're enjoying the process. But then you go to school. They train you to believe that the only purpose of learning is to pass the test, and it sucks all the joy out of the process. When I was in school, I read a lot of books, except my textbooks. Those things sucked. I hated them. I opened them in class, and even then, I only read the pages the teacher was telling me to read that day. Some people used to read ahead, but I was never one of those. The one time I read my textbook was when I was cramming for a test. Once I took the test, I would immediately forget everything I had spent the whole night cramming. I know, I'm not alone here. There are lots of people who went to school and got a diploma, but never really got an education because they didn't actually learn anything. They just crammed for tests. School turned us into test-taking robots that hyper-focus on results and never learn to enjoy the process. And it's a miracle that we don't hate school more than we already do. This mindset has extended to the workplace with stuff like key performance metrics. Most jobs don't reward you for doing anything well. They reward you for ticking the right boxes on the checklist. That's why they feel so soulless. When you focus on KPIs, you don't focus on the process, and you don't focus on doing it well. And just like Finn in the cave, you make it less enjoyable than it actually could be. We have even brought this mindset to the bedroom. Instead of enjoying the process of lovemaking, we distract ourselves by organizing fantasy football teams in our head so that we can last longer. We've turned a fun activity into a depressing chore because we hyper-focus on lasting as long as possible and completely forget to actually enjoy it. It's a terrible, terrible tragedy. Alright, I know you've heard this advice before. I've definitely heard it like 148,000 times before, but please, try. Try to enjoy the process in whatever you're doing. You're still gonna get where you're going, you just won't have a migraine when you get there. Now, there's a 95% chance that I'm totally wrong because Hall of Egress is so deep and complicated that it can be interpreted a dozen different ways, but I don't think I'm too wrong. What do you guys think? Catch you next time.